right, Ricky Flex. We talk about the low bar that was set from the uh, the promotion of this movie, from where it stands in the DC pantheon. Talk about the grandma with the machine gun, red flag immediately. You've seen the movie now, though. So after those expectations, that low bar, did it actually surpass that bar?
It did for me. It surpassed my low expectations after seeing all this trailer, all the marketing for this movie, even the C-list or whatever superhero that Blue Beetle is. It surpassed my expectations. The problem is my expectations were so low that it still doesn't mean it's a good movie. I think the Rotten Tomatoes is this is outrageous. I think 76 certified fresh. I think that's pretty. I'm not saying this movie's bad. Again, it beat my expectations. But for this to be certified fresh is just shocking for me. I just would never have predicted that. Audience score 92. That makes sense. Like, this is a perfect movie for family, fun, some comic relief. You have a George Lopez here, and the whole family's funny at times. Some of the jokes hit. Like, yeah, this is a good, fun family movie. But at the end of the day, is it good? No, it's not good. It follows the formula, typical prototype for superhero movies, especially for DC right now in their poor run. And this is just another one in that clog of DC, of the DCEU, I should say, the DCEU. So for me, yes, it beat my expectations, but is this good? No.
Yeah, so I don't know if you meant to say like it's a cog in the machine, but I actually agree with the term clog because it seems
Yeah.
like we're getting everything that is clustered in the same category.
Yes.
It almost has no hopes to succeed, right? Because of the surrounding elements and the fact that this story, it's a superhero film, but it feels super personal to like the Latin American experience. You have the director, Latin American, all the actors, supporting cast, lead, female lead, like everyone aside from Susan Sarandon is Latin American. So I just felt bad after I came out of this movie because none of these people can talk about the movie or promote it because of the SAG after strikes. And like this seemed like a very personal story for the director. My takeaway though is like a lot of people are talking about Zola Maridueña, first character that's going to carry over into the DCU. I'm excited to see more of him, dude. I said it. Like it definitely surpassed my expectations. I think it was really smart to cast this young actor, 22 years old, with this relatively unknown or unpopular DC character. You have room to operate a little bit. There's not a high expectation set upon Zola Maridueña, but I thought he was great as a superhero, super charismatic, right? I think he was someone that bought into the family vibe, but also could stand on his own. And I think he looked like the suit looked incredible in my eyes. I think for a $104 million budget, I think it looked decent. I think it looked better than The Flash did. I know that's not a high bar, but we saw the budget of The Flash compared to Blue Beetle. This movie was supposed to be on HBO Max. This was not supposed to get a theatrical release. We get Batgirl shelved. We didn't know what the prospects of Blue Beetle were going to be. The fact that we got it in theaters, somewhat of an accomplishment. I would also say I agree with you. There are some redeeming qualities that I found this movie actually surpassed the low bar, but the writing of this movie sucked. It was really bad. And it wasn't just bad, it was unoriginal. It follows a lot of the superhero cliches and it has those superhero origin movie moments. And it felt like, although it has that family center, it also just feels like a culmination of so many superhero movies we've seen, whether it's like collecting from Iron Man, whether it's from Ant-Man. It just feels like it's just a lot of these movies smushed together that we've seen in the past 15 years. Overall, I like it, mainly because of the lead, but definitely surpassed the low bar.
Yeah. I think that was the perfect summary of this movie, to be honest. I think if you want to add a few more things, if you really want a quick summary, is like bad villain. Like bad villain, bad henchman, right? And with speaking of the writing, the line where it's like your family makes you weak or whatever, almost like, oh my, like the dialogue just was on the nose the entire time. And again, formulaic. So I think the villain was a problem. A lot of themes here. like you have gentrification clearly, like with all the for sale signs, the capitalism, kind of the reverse American dream. Like Jaime goes to college and then comes back, can't get a job. You have what else? You have
They
uh,
sneak in some imperialism,
yeah,
dude.
yes, dude. They do freaking Guatemala like warfare in here at the end, like the rushed ending for that henchman. Quick a montage for him just to get some background for his character. You have a little bit of racism at times, like the secretary like purposely not using Jaime. You having Susan Sarandon call that guy Sanchez just because he's Latino,
So
Hispanic.
unsubtle. Like it was just like a
Terrible.
poor, and it was basically like, yeah, we're just basically, it's like we're just calling Susan Sarandon's characters racist in the most obvious ways possible. And it felt weird. There were some weird directorial decisions too to go along with the writing.
Yeah, and I think that was bad. All that was bad. But I will say, on a positive note, again, this is the first Mexican American superhero, right, on the big screen. So this is a big accomplishment. And I think there's clearly a strong Latino, Latin American, or Hispanic culture community vibes in this movie that worked really well. And I think this movie looked okay. I think it looked a little cheap at times and that Max feel. But overall, with the sense of community and that Hispanic culture, I think that worked really well with the themes around family. Even though some were too on the nose, of course, we have a superhero that lost his dad or lost a loved one that, like in the origin story, of course. But end of the day, like I think the family ties worked pretty well in this.
Yeah, the family was, I think, the strongest proponent of the movie. It was really good at having the stakes always coming back to the family, and the family formed like almost an Avengers style of team that maybe isn't like the most realistic, but it still is at the core of the film. And I think it's pretty authentic, like you said, to the Latin American experience, from the construction of the family, the grandma that lives with, right? You lives with in under one roof with the rest of the family. You got the uncle who's living also under the one roof. You got you got the Zolo Maridueña character, right? All of a sudden, he's the first one to graduate from college. You have a lot of Latin American references, pop culture references from shows that I didn't recognize personally, but I got reactions when I was watching. I was looking at the demographics of like the breakdown box office wise. 40% of moviegoers are Latin American
Mm.
that are going to see this movie. I think they find that they're very passionate about this, and they're proud to see a character like Blue Beetle and taking the Jaime Reyes route as opposed to the old white guy Ted Kord. I think that was smart because it goes to the director's strengths, and I think it was authentic for a movie that is covered in CGI and it's a guy wearing a blue beetle suit and covered in a parasite. I think it's better and has a stronger heart than the majority of movies that we've had in the superhero genre as of recent.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think it was pretty smart to do that too, because like I think the Jaime character was created in 2006. I want to say it was like in the 2000s, like they changed it or whatever. So I think it was smart that they did it that way too. Um, I will just mention just because we brought up the family and you brought up yeah, you brought up the family and they definitely, Shazam came out earlier this year. Okay, this is like the family themes here is what Shazam tries to do, but like this does it much better than that movie. What I think Shazam does better with the family views with compared to this one is the third act and the Shazam family having superpowers and this one not.
Yeah.
And it was just overstepping so many boundaries within the superhero world that I just couldn't get over.
Yeah, it's like when the grandma, when she's like grabbing a gun, like you see in the trailer, it's like they try and relate it to like almost like give a glimpse into what her past looked like, but it just felt random and it was going for a cheap joke. And I think you could have done something different, written something a little more clever to make her effective in the third act. That one, it felt like I was watching a Looney Tunes cartoon. I'm like,
Mm.
why is this happening at this moment? It's like Granny, like with Tweety. I just felt like
Yes,
her like
yes.
firing a gun. It was like her taking a ball and dunking it in Space Jam, and like that's more likely probably than what we got in this movie. George Lopez, I want to talk about him, and we'll just go into the family a little bit. I found that George Lopez seemed like he just had the time of his life, and he is a really talented dude, obviously hilarious, and I want to see him do more material in theaters. Like he's obviously one of the best stand-up comedians. He's had the show for so long, the George Lopez show. But after watching this, I'm like, I don't like Zola Maridueña is so charismatic, but there's no character that has as good of a time as George Lopez as Rudy. And I when he was on screen, I was smiling. I was really skeptical when the trailer came out and you had like the Batman's a fascist line. It seemed like that was very polarizing with fans. And it's like, you don't talk about Batman in that way type of mentality. But in the context of the movie, I think it worked, especially when this movie, we don't know if we're going to see these supporting characters again. Are they even? They're talking about a Batman that doesn't even exist. We don't know if it's in the DCU, DCEU. It's good not to take it too seriously. But I thought he excelled here. My second favorite performance behind Solo Maridueña.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like his comic relief worked almost the entire time, and a lot of his jokes hit. But I also think we worked well in the non-comedic relief as well, kind of like taking a back seat to Jaime at times, especially when it's just Jaime, the love interest, Jenny Cord, I think is her name,
Yeah,
and him. I think that dynamic worked pretty well
that
because of
was
him.
good.
He kind of brought that weight or balance to it. And I think because I do think there was some because just the superhero tropes of the love interest, the love relationship there was a problem at times. And I think George Lopez kind of helped with the balancing act of it. So yeah, I think it was good. And I'm just looking at his IMDb because IMDb is hilarious. But like his upcoming projects, he has two Christmas projects. He has Aloha Santa, where he's playing Santa Claus and something, and then he's How the Gringo Stole Christmas. Like his IMDb is hilarious.
Yeah, it just he doesn't do many serious projects or even just blockbuster fare. He just stays out of the limelight. But when George Lopez is doing something, you're gonna get like a fan base that goes to watch it or that are excited to go to the theaters to watch it. Uh, so he was good. I thought Milagro Reyes, the sister of Zola Maridueña, I thought her dialogue was really cringy. To be honest, when this movie started, she was the one that I was really turned off by immediately. I'm not talking about looks. Don't paint a picture here. I'm talking about like the way she's talking at the beginning. It her dynamic with Jaime, it just felt off. It felt weird. Um, I do want to talk about someone that you brought up, and you mentioned like some chemistry issues potentially with Jenny Cord, played by Bruna Marquezine. Marquezine, it might be. Excuse me if I didn't pronounce that correctly. But I will say, Ricky, I made a list earlier on
Oh
where
god.
Margot Robbie's like number one for me.
Dude, you're right.
Haley Atwell is like also enter an upper echelon for me from this summer movie theater experience. But Jenny Cord,
She jumps to the list.
she
I
is
I
she is in that top tier. Oh my god, she can't act for shit, but dude, she is gorgeous.
I felt a little bad for her because she was kind of like the person that just kept the movie going along. You know, she gives the scarab to Jaime. She shows them the Ted Cord basement, the lair. You know, it gives them the ability with the weapons, give them the weapons to fight, gives them the ship to the Beetle ship. You know, like she's just there to kind of like put plot holes, like plug plot holes. You know, so I felt kind of bad because then when it got to the acting part and the relationship with Jaime, it just never really blended. It never really worked. It just didn't. But
Just two like good looking young people, and like obviously
she is
both Latin
gorgeous. I
American.
like
He
that
is
last
he
scene
is
when she's
stunning.
like when that last scene when she coming off the bike
Oh
and
yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
she also was tall. Like I was surprised how tall she was. I was like, wow, like yeah, she's just gorgeous. Like it's I could see her in more things in the future, but like she would need to, maybe less dialogue and more acting. I don't know. I felt a little bad for her at times, but at the end of the day, this is only gonna help her.
Yeah, it's unknown Brazilian actress. Like she does a lot of telenovelas, or she did do those. I can see her becoming like a Gal Gadot. Yes, like maybe doesn't have the
Yes.
best chops, just a lower scale potentially.
Like
No, she's not going to
starring
be
in a
Wonder
Netflix
Woman
movie.
one day, but she's going to be in other stuff. I can see her in like a couple Netflix movies in the not so distant future. She's just too good looking to not have on a big screen.
Yeah, and she does have something there besides just she has something.
Yeah,
It's
she
just
was
like
more experienced.
it's just like is she gonna be a Wonder Woman like you said, or is she gonna lead a dramatic movie? No. Can she be the star of Heart of Stone? Yes.
Yes, I agree. Um, she could do something like that for sure. She's gonna be a streaming star, I bet. I would guess, or I could see her where Fast and Furious supporting cast. I could see that eventually
That's a
happening.
great call.
Yeah, like put that on the board. Let's make a marker there. Let's talk about some villains here. Let's talk about Susan Sarandon and who is this other guy, Ricky? Do you have it in front of you?
His name is uh Raul Max Trujillo.
Oh, I got it. Raul Trujillo. Okay, he plays Conrad Carapax.
Didn't know his
These
name until now.
these villains, severely underwritten. And Susan Sarandon is a decent name, a decent size name to play a villain. I could see her pulling it off, especially in this tech type of world, almost like this white collar type of villain, almost like what you picture with Robert Redford in Winter Soldier type of like vibe. I could have sensed that with her, except they really didn't give us any background. There was a slight moment where she talks about how much she hated her brother, like the father of what's her name, Jenny Cord, and the Ted Cord, the original Blue Beetle. So it just you get an angry quip there, and then they tried to add a whole element with the Conrad Carapax character, doing a flashback in the middle of the third act when you could have easily done something to plant the seed in the first two acts. Odd directorial decision. The villains, I don't think the performances were bad. It's just I didn't give a shit. I didn't care. Like I could not care about Susan Sarandon's character. And I won't do spoilers here, but I think Carapax makes a really odd decision that meets the demise of the villain in this
Wild.
film. Just like after a really like heartwarming, emotional moment, there's a decision made that maybe we could talk about a little bit in a brief spoiler section today that just made me have like question marks bubbling all around my head, you know. But I thought the villains definitely a weak part of this movie. I was more interested in seeing the family and the Zola Dueña aspect.
Yeah, like they each of these villains had a montage, whereas it's with Carapax, whatever. Or Susan Sarandon had like a little monologue in the helicopters to Jenny Cord saying about her backstory for a quick 30 seconds, and that was it. Like why she's doing all this. It's just like so underwritten, but like honestly, if you didn't say anything and they were just bad people, then it's fine. Because then it's like, all right, we know what this is. Like this isn't gonna be a great movie, but at least they know what this is. But it tries and it fails, and that's where it's like crap. Like that's just not a good look, especially for DC. It was like such a big brand to like just fail like that. It's just pretty poor. And I think for me as well with her character, I do think she wasn't that good, Susan Sarandon. I don't think so. I'm not gonna say mail it in, but if you did say that, I can't say she didn't. It was pretty close. Like, dude, some of the scenes where she was like, kill the family. Like, it wasn't delivered well at all. Like, it felt like she was reading from a script half the time.
Yeah, dude, she didn't have like the villain monologue, you know, that you typically see. Didn't have great one-on-ones with Zola Dueña. It didn't seem like it just didn't have a lot of screen time either. You know, it just
She's
feel
an
like
Oscar winner.
we just really didn't get much from Susan Sarandon, and I think it was just pretty vanilla for her. You could tell like they wrote her character to be a bit racist, and I thought it was pretty lazy writing in the aspect that in the way that they did it. And yeah, it didn't none of the lines hit. You know, it's just there was nothing memorable about the performance. It was more than vanilla. The memorable performance from a villain is actually from the henchman from Carapax. That is like the moment from a villain that you walk away from saying, "Oh yeah, that's the moment where you felt something." But it also came at the most inopportune time of the movie and just made zero sense in that aspect. Just as we wrap up talking about the cast here, Ricky, I had a question. So we're getting Zola Dueña playing Jaime Reyes in the DCU. When and where we see him, we have no idea. But based on this movie, could you see a love interest, a Jenny Cord being carried over to the DCU? Could you see a George Lopez as Rudy, as his guy in the chair, being carried over into the DCU, or any of the family? Can you imagine any of those characters flipping over aside from Zola Dueña?
I think a big problem with this character now going forward is that this will probably never get a movie again. It won't get a sequel, I think. And I think if it's going to be like in the Booster Gold series or something like that, okay. But the best parts about this movie were around the family. And I think if Blue Beetle is going to be a side character in the DCU, You're not going to bring a side character's family into it. So I do see a problem with this character being brought over in the DCU and not being the star in a project, because the best parts of it are kind of around him. And even though he's good, not great in my opinion, good, he's like from Cobra Kai, and I think it clearly shows that level quality is this. I think for his acting, it's this, and that's fine. But I think overall, it's just like I'm a little nervous heading forward in the DCU and whatever he's going to be in without his family and those connections and themes.
Yeah, that's the huge concern. This is where the question marks start with this character. It's going to be the first character that's going to be in the DCU. So what happens to everybody else, right? What happens to the fan favorite, the Rudy, the George Lopez? Like, where do we just act like that never happened? Do you have the love interest who has the name Cord, and like the original Blue Beetle was Ted Cord? So it's like, why? Like, can you afford to just not bring this up again? Right? Can you do that? And Zola Maridueña, I'm more high on him than you, dude. I think he's only 22 years old.
Yeah, he's
He
young.
is freaking young, dude. I could see him growing with this character as a Latin American, as someone growing with this person, right, to play and represent this culture. It's almost like how people like how African Americans embrace Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther. Obviously, a little bit more notable of a name, but not too much as a superhero. He's not like the prominent Marvel name prior to 2018's Black Panther movie coming out. You don't think of Marvel and say, "Oh, Black Panther." Just like DC, you don't think of Blue Beetle, right? Despite having a little bit of pop culture relevance. I want to see more stuff with him. I want to see him in a Booster Gold series, but how is it going to look exactly? And we got a post credit for this film. Does that have any matter? Does it even matter? But like, if it doesn't matter, why wouldn't they just cut the scene? Like, why did you include that post credit unless there's going to be potential sequels that are going to be spinning off from that moment in the post credit? To me, this is where the question starts, and this is where the confusion will continue, especially if there are a lot of asterisks on this box office because of the implications of the new DCU, because of the people not being able to promote their own film, and because of it being an HBO Max film that turned into a theatrical release. I just don't know where we go from here because I would like to see more Blue Beetle after watching this movie. I
Yeah,
might be the minority, but I don't know.
and he also has Kaji in the suit that he's still working that relationship with, and it's still not perfect.
Oh, that was one of my favorite parts about the movie, Ricky Flex. I meant to bring this up. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No, you're good.
What I liked about this, you know how it's like Jarvis in Iron Man, he's always on the same page, right? But eventually what you get in this movie, you have his version of Jarvis. Was it Kaji you said?
Mm-hmm.
Kaji alongside of Jaime Reyes. They don't see eye to eye. You have Kaji always trying to kill people when in control of the suit. Then you have that cooperation between Jaime saying we're not going to kill anybody. And then by the end of the movie, the Kaji is speaking Spanish to Jaime. To me, that was actually a really cool element of the movie that I don't think people are going to recognize, or maybe it's just going to be almost like an unconscious thing that as they get through the third act. To me, that was golden. He's creating a relationship with this artificial intelligence.
Yeah, like in the alien species that's been here for centuries. Like it's like very interesting. I totally agree. And I think it got better as the movie went on. And I think we're still a work in progress because we have no idea besides this Garrett guy, Ted Cord's. By the way, Ted Cord, not a good person. Not a good person. Yes, went through trauma losing his wife, but
Well, we know about that.
yeah, not a good person, clearly.
The movie kind of hammers that he's a bad guy.
Yeah, but like this other guy, Garrett, forget his name, who actually had the scarab before Jaime. Like, I want to like, there's no history with the scarab and this guy besides that we know that he had it, and we know that this is old and it's alien, you know. So I just there's a lot of question marks around it too that if without another Blue Beetle project, we'll never get answers to, and I think that's also a problem.
There's a lot of unanswered questions that will remain unanswered. Like those we'll never get to know like the background of this. We'll talk about the post credit in a spoiler section one little second, but yeah, like anything that you might have lingering, like it will just stay there. And the next time we see Blue Beetle, most likely will be Booster Gold. And They won't reference like the Susan Sarandon character, her core, her evil cord character. That won't be a part of it whatsoever. It's like what is important into the carryover process. It would have been so much easier if James Gunn said, "This is the first DCU movie," or he said, "This is the end of the DCEU," or it's standalone. Just pick one of them. And as much as we like Zola Dwayne, we want to see him again, the fans care so much about continuity, and if you f that up right before you even make your first official project or movie in this new universe, just a bad place to start, right? Especially if you're trying to do something that can compete with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, take advantage of their mediocre turn the last few years. Don't mess it up before you've done anything. Okay. Anything else you want to bring up, Ricky Flex, as we head into the spoiler section and our scores?
Yeah, I just think overall this movie just felt for me a better CW version on the big screen for me, the CW series.
Come on.
That's what it felt like to me. And again, not as low as that, but I still think it's just a little better than that. Very predictable, poor script, poor dialogue. The acting was iffy. There's some nice family moments, some themes there. Again, we talked about it. I think just overall like formulaic, campy, and some nice moments, but overall, just I don't think this was very good.
Okay. Definitely falls with those cliches that we get in superhero movies. It does the whole thing that we saw in Guardians and Guardians 3, Deadpool 2, where it goes like it's not your time yet. He's talking to someone on the other side in the Mirage type of setting, you know. Uh, but at those moments, that cliche type of moment, it still has heart though. You know, it doesn't feel empty inside. There's so many, like, I would assume this movie, it was DOA, dude. This movie was DOA, dead on arrival. Like once it started to get promoted, once they said this was going to be HBO Max, then Batgirl happens. Seems like the whole Batgirl fiasco put this 6 feet under, right, before it even came out. So you had to pull it for this to
That's a
be
good
a
point.
success at the box office. You had to be like the Undertaker coming out of the coffin. You had to have a performance of the ages, and you had to have an electric opening. It's not that, okay, but it has soul. It has soul to it, and I think it's authentic to a certain group of people. Your theater, what was the crowd like? Was it packed? Was it halfway packed? And was there many Latin Americans embracing this new hero?
So I actually saw this in IMAX. And so big theater. I counted 8 people in my theater. 8 people. I would say half. So it goes along mainly with the statistics. Half were Hispanic. I would say.
Half were Hispanic. Okay, 8 people in an IMAX theater. That's one of the loneliest places on earth. With 8 people seeing Blue Beetle in an
It,
IMAX screening.
yeah, it was pretty bad. As in, like, I was shocked. But like, you're right though. Like, this kind of hit a tidal wave or a tornado of factors like hurting it. Like you mentioned, the HBO Max rumored release. You have Barbenheimer still going on. DC just in a rut. Shazam or Black Adam. You could really start Black Adam. Black Adam, Shazam, the Flash bombs. You have the strikes, writer strikes, actor strikes, and just August is not a good time to release a movie. Like end of August, that's just like, yep, this movie needs to get released before the fall season really
It's
kicks
the
up.
it's the January of the
Yeah,
summer
it's the
or of
dumpuary
yeah,
of the summer. You know,
exactly. Yeah.
so there's a reason why it released here. So I feel bad for it, but at the end of the day, like it did beat my expectations. Like that has something to say.
And I do want to add before we jump into scores. Uh, Theme song was good. I like the theme song a lot. I think it hit really well in this movie, and I also like the yacht rock vibes and with like the '80s font and the sparkle it's splashing across the screen.
Miami.
And I like how the yacht rock songs they're in Spanish. Like they're still like those songs that we recognize, but it's still keeping the identity like that the director's vision right for this film. But scores, Ricky Flicks. What do you give Blue Beetle?
This is I've been bouncing around this all day. Um, within like the 10 percentage points. I'm gonna go 47.
68 for me. This is the furthest that we've had a differentiation in scores. That is okay. 47, Ricky. Holy crap. What a decision. No, I feel like you had a bias going in. I can't. I don't know what it is, Ricky.
It,
You said,
I
"Am I gonna see this movie? Right? Should we even review it? Blah blah blah."
I
And
did
then
though.
you're
No
coming
one's
off
seeing this
70
movie.
millimeter Oppenheimer,
I
like
saw this before that.
yeah, but when you're thinking about fluctuation of scores, you're talking about the perfect viewing experience of a film, and you're comparing it to seeing Blue Beetle in IMAX
I
with
never
8D
compared it. I never compared it. You compared it.
You compare it with your scores. That's what you compare it with.
Okay, fine. You know what? Fine. Go see the movie. If you haven't seen the movie and you're still listening,
Ricky, I'm not. I'm just saying. I'm just putting everything into context.
you're
I'm
putting
okay.
things into context, but
I'm okay. I
not
might be.
necessarily facts.
I might be on the high side. Like my people might agree with you more than they do with me. I don't know. I
Well,
Rotten Tomato, but
92% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. I think I'm in the minority here.
that just means like they positively viewed the movie. I guess you're in the minority, but like it's not high rated on IMDb either. So it's interesting.
Sure.
I don't know. I'm interested in see what the ramifications in the future of this character.